Welcome to the Technical Writing Success Podcast from Curt Robbins, where we help you get smarter than your competition. Hire Curt to coach you or your employees in AI to avoid a pink slip or having your competition eat your lunch. This is episode 188. I am Fred Jones.
And I am Daphne Blake.
This episode reviews an informative article from Dr. Xenia Wade in Japan entitled AI Shame: Why Half Your Workforce is Hiding Their AI Use, that was published on March 14.
Yeah, so this is just such a wild topic to me. I mean, we have these incredibly powerful tools right now, right?
Right, exactly.
And they are literally designed to eliminate all this workplace drudgery. But the main reaction from the workforce isn't, celebration. It is just straight up secrecy.
It really is a paradox.
Yeah.
Imagine for a second that you are sitting down to take a super high-stakes, incredibly difficult math exam,
Okay.
and your whole career depends on the outcome. Now, you happen to have a calculator in your pocket that virtually guarantees a perfect score.
Right. And it is allowed by the testing board, right?
Yeah, exactly. It is totally allowed. It is sitting right there. But instead of putting it on your desk, you just keep it hidden. You decide to do the complex calculus in your head, risk making a massive error, and take 3 times as long purely because you are terrified the proctor might judge you for using a tool.
Which sounds completely irrational. Like, why would anyone do that?
Exactly. But according to the data we are looking at today, that is exactly what half the modern workforce is doing right now with artificial intelligence.
It is. Dr. Wade's research is so urgent because it totally redefines the problem. Like, for the past 2 years, the narrative has just been that employees don't know how to use these tools. Companies thought it was a software training issue.
Right. They thought people just needed a tutorial.
Yeah, but the data reveals it is actually a deeply human identity crisis.
Yeah.
Which brings us to a phenomenon called AI shame.
So, to you listening right now, whether you're an executive staring at a $1 million software dashboard wondering why nobody is logging in, or you are an employee who quietly opens a separate browser tab to have a chatbot outline your weekly report while pretending you spent hours on it yourself. This episode is going to explain exactly why you feel that friction.
Yeah, and to understand the scope of that friction, we have to look at the numbers Dr. Wade highlights from a 2025 WalkMe survey. They polled 1,000 U.S. workers, and the baseline finding is that 49% of employees actively hide their AI use at work.
Wait, 49%? That is basically half the workforce operating in secret.
Almost exactly half. But the statistic that genuinely caught me off guard wasn't about entry-level employees, it was the C-suite.
Oh, the 53% stat.
Yes, 53% of C-suite leaders are hiding their AI use too. I mean, why would the people at the very top of the food chain who have the most job security feel the need to hide a productivity tool?
Well, it really comes down to the vulnerability of leadership. They want to maintain this aura of omniscience. These are the exact same executives standing on stage at company all-hands meetings, loudly mandating that everyone needs to embrace the future.
Right, telling everyone to use the new multi-million-dollar platforms.
Exactly. But behind closed doors, they are terrified of looking out of touch. They do not want their IT director or the board to know that they are struggling to format a basic prompt. It feels like a crack in their executive armor.
So because the leadership is projecting this false mastery, the rest of the company just follows suit. The article mentions that 78% of employees resort to shadow AI.
And shadow AI is just people using unapproved tools, right?
Right, like using a chat bot on their personal phones or private laptops just so the company network doesn't log their activity. It proves the barrier isn't a lack of technological competence. They know how to use it.
They're going out of their way to do it secretly.
Exactly. Dr. Wade argues that every time a professional stares at a blank AI prompt window, they are undergoing a silent, internal negotiation about their professional worth. She calls this the triple threat of AI shame.
Okay, let's unpack this triple threat.
Yeah.
The first one is the fear of being labeled lazy, right?
Yeah, which is deeply tied to our corporate conditioning. For over a century, we have equated the sheer amount of time suffered with the value created.
Right, the whole grind culture thing.
Exactly. If you use AI to draft a comprehensive report in 12 minutes, your immediate anxiety is that your manager will view it as cheap because it didn't involve 3 days of visible grinding effort.
That makes total sense. And the second threat she identifies is the fear of appearing incompetent, which is fascinating because you are using a tool that makes you more capable, yet you feel less competent.
Right, because generative AI requires an ongoing dialogue. It isn't like a spreadsheet that just does exactly what you type. If an employee struggles to write a prompt, or if the AI hallucinates, confidently makes up false information, the employee internalizes that failure.
So they think, What does it say about my intelligence if I can't even get a piece of software to understand me?
Exactly. It instantly makes a seasoned professional feel like an inexperienced intern all over again. The machine feels smarter than the user.
Wow. And then there's the third threat, which is probably the heaviest, the fear of becoming obsolete. It is that existential dread that if you teach the AI how to do 80% of your job in 10 seconds, you are basically training your own replacement.
Right, so lazy, incompetent, obsolete. When you look at those three components, you realize none of these fears are about the software itself. They are entirely about identity.
But let me play devil's advocate for a second here. A skeptical manager might hear all this and just think, this is just imposter syndrome. We didn't coddle people when email replaced the fax machine, so they just need to adapt.
And that manager would be completely wrong because Dr. Wade's data forcefully proves this fear is not paranoia.
Yeah.
People are hiding their AI use because they are actively being punished for it.
Here's where it gets really interesting for you listening. Dr. Wade points to this massive Harvard Business Review study from August 2025.
Yeah, from researchers at Peking University and Hong Kong Polytechnic University. It wasn't a small survey. They looked at nearly 29,000 software engineers.
That is a massive sample size.
Yeah.
And the methodology is brilliant. They had senior engineers review blocks of Python code, but the catch was the output they reviewed was absolutely identical, letter for letter, the exact same code.
But the labels were different.
Right? Some reviewers were told the code was written by a human, and others were told the exact same code was written with AI assistance. And the engineers who had the AI user label slapped on their work received a 9% lower competence rating.
A 9% drop for identical, perfect code. Their brains just unconsciously devalued the human being who submitted it. The tool diminished the perceived value of the outcome.
Which just makes no business sense to me. If the final product is flawless and it was produced faster, why on earth would you penalize the person who orchestrated it?
It comes back to conflating the heavy lifting with the value. They view the AI as a crutch, not a lever, and the penalty wasn't applied equally across the workforce either.
No. The demographic breakdown highlights a stark gender disparity. Female engineers faced a 13% competence drop simply for having the AI label attached.
And men only faced a 6% drop.
Right. And the study identified exactly who was handing out the harshest penalties. It was senior male engineers who had actively refused to adopt AI themselves. They penalized female AI users up to 26% more than their male counterparts.
26%. And it is purely professional self-preservation. A senior developer has spent 20 years mastering a complex coding language. Suddenly, a junior employee using AI can generate that same code in seconds.
So by penalizing the AI user, they are unconsciously protecting their own legacy skill set.
Exactly. They are signaling that the traditional hard way is the only competent way. And there was another study from Duke University published in PNAS in May 2025 that broadens this out to the general workplace.
Right. The one showing that professionals who use AI are universally perceived as lazier and less diligent.
Yes, and managers who do not use AI themselves are significantly less likely to hire or promote candidates who admit they do. The anticipated competence penalty is the single strongest predictor of AI refusal.
People are just protecting their livelihoods.
Exactly.
Let's take a brief break for a special message from our producer, Curt Robbins.
Stick around.
Hi, this is Curt Robbins. First, thanks for listening. I truly appreciate your support. I want to let you know that I'm currently accepting new clients. My rates are affordable, and I have more than 25 years of experience working for enterprise companies like Microsoft, Northrop Grumman, Oracle, PNC Bank, FedEx, USAA, and Wells Fargo, among many others. If you want to improve your IT documentation and communications, hire me. I deliver fast, know how to use AI to improve efficiency and accuracy, and love going the extra mile to satisfy my clients. Thank you for subscribing and listening. Back to you, Daphne and Fred.
Welcome back to the Technical Writing Success Podcast, where we help you get smarter than your competition by coaching you in AI. So before the break, we established that employees are hiding their AI use to protect their careers.
Right. The fear is completely rational. But the way corporate leadership is handling this is a total disconnect. Dr. Wade calls it the dashboard delusion.
The dashboard delusion. I love that term.
Yeah.
Because organizations are pouring millions into these highly secure enterprise AI suites like Copilot. And they naturally assume they should measure adoption digitally.
So they track vanity metrics, they look at how many accounts were activated, or they count the total number of prompts submitted.
They track clicks because clicks are easy to quantify. But you cannot measure emotional friction on a dashboard. Management sees that 80% of accounts are activated, they assume the rollout is a massive success, and they are completely blind to the fact that daily usage is practically non-existent.
Right, because treating adoption as a purely technical problem guarantees failure. They run these boot camps on prompt engineering, teaching the mechanics of how to type the words, but they completely ignore the identity shift required to trust the machine.
And Dr. Wade calls this the emotional carrying capacity, right?
Yes, think of it like RAM in your computer. You only have so much working memory. If an employee is using 90% of their cognitive bandwidth, worrying about whether they look obsolete, they literally have no processing power left to learn a complex new prompting language.
The system just crashes. And this is practically guaranteed in what she calls a blame culture, where efficiency actually becomes a liability.
Exactly. Let's make this tangible for the listener. If you figure out a way to use AI to condense a grueling 5-hour weekly report down to 30 minutes, do you run and tell your boss?
In a blame culture, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Because you aren't going to get a bonus or get to go home early.
Nope. The reward for radical efficiency is just a larger volume of work. Your manager will say, great, you have 4 extra hours, here are 3 more projects.
With 0 extra compensation.
Yeah.
So you make the rational choice. You quietly bank that saved time to avoid burnout. But that secrecy creates a massive vulnerability for the company.
Huge. That shadow AI we talked about earlier, you have confidential client data and unreleased financial forecasts flowing directly into public AI models on people's personal phones, just because they are too scared to use the secure enterprise copilot.
Because they are worried, IT will track their prompts and judge them. And the other massive casualty here is that knowledge sharing completely halts.
That is the invisible tax of AI shame. When someone discovers a brilliant 4-hour time-saving workflow, they never share it at the team meeting. Best practices stay totally siloed.
Every department is just fumbling through the same mistakes alone. And ironically, your top performers, the ones who usually drive innovation, they disengage the most. They have the most reputation to lose, so they just revert to the slow way of doing things.
They opt out entirely, and leadership never knows why because the dashboard still shows their account is active. So how do we actually break this cycle? Because clearly, another mandatory software webinar isn't going to cut it.
Right, you cannot teach someone out of an emotional barrier. Dr. Wade says the very first step is that leaders have to go first, and they have to do it imperfectly.
That is the most powerful point. Transparency has to start at the top, and it has to involve failure. Imagine a vice president standing up and saying, listen, I tried to get the AI to analyze our Q3 data yesterday. It took me 4 completely failed attempts. It hallucinated twice, and I was so frustrated before I got it right.
That one moment of vulnerability shatters the illusion of effortless perfection. It gives everyone in the room explicit permission to be a beginner again.
Yes. And then you have to name the emotion out loud. Look your employees in the eye and say, it is normal to feel overwhelmed. It is normal to feel like a novice.
Validating the experience deflates the shame instantly. And from there, you have to reframe AI as a mandatory professional skill for repetitive work, not a questionable shortcut for lazy workers.
Because the framing dictates the adoption. If it is seen as cheating, nobody ambitious will touch it. But if it is an exoskeleton that frees up human creativity, it becomes an asset. She also emphasizes shifting away from evaluative training. Encourage peer learning instead.
It is like learning to drive a manual transmission car.
Oh, exactly.
If your very first day involves a rigid pass-or-fail test in heavy traffic with an evaluator, your emotional carrying capacity is going to max out. You're going to panic.
Right.
What you actually need is an empty parking lot, a patient friend, and permission to stall the engine a dozen times.
Such a perfect analogy. And management has to commit to evaluating the quality of the final work, not the tool used to get there. That is crucial for combating those demographic biases we talked about. If your performance review secretly docks points because you used AI, the system punishes the exact transformation it demands.
So HR needs to pivot from click metrics to measuring readiness drivers, like psychological safety and adaptability mindset. You cannot build sustainable tech adoption without designing for the human emotional experience first.
The gap between having a software license and actually using it is an emotional gap, not a technical one.
So to you listening right now, whether you are a leader watching your expensive digital dashboard flatline, or you are the employee secretly running reports through a chatbot on your phone, you are on the front lines of this massive cultural shift. The barrier to the future of work isn't the algorithm. It is our deeply human fear of judgment.
Until we have the courage to address the human element, digital transformation will remain stalled in the shadows.
Which leaves us with a final thought to mull over as you navigate your workplace tomorrow. If AI really is the inevitable future of work, will the ultimate winners be the companies with the biggest budgets who can afford the most advanced algorithms? Or will the winners simply be the companies that are culturally brave enough to let their employees safely admit they have absolutely no idea what they are doing?
That is the real question.
Thank you for listening to the Technical Writing Success Podcast from Curt Robbins, where we help you get smarter than your competition. Hire us to coach you or your employees in AI to future-proof your career or company. Subscribe now to never miss a career-saving episode.